UFC has their own ranking, but it's a running kind of joke that it's not very good.
Right.
And so what we did is, because we had all of this data about technical capabilities of the fighters, we can benchmark them ourselves.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Myosin Learns. Today we are learning about integrating AI across multiple workflows with Polina Kalashnikova. Polina is my colleague at Myosin and founder at Polium, a marketing partner for tech companies that specialize in content and creative. She's also the co-founder of Exolume, an innovative studio that focuses on working with crypto and iGaming companies. And actually it was in this process that she was demonstrating, her work within Myosin that I was particularly taken. So she was implementing AI across one of the projects called Fight Signal, and I was blown away. So I asked Polina to come on and tell us a little bit about how she's integrating AI, not just on that project, but more broadly.
Fight Signal was kind of like a passion project that turned into a business, I would say. If you're familiar with UFC at all, UFC has fights every weekend, every Saturday. And what we built is a tool. Essentially, it's an analytics and prediction platform. What it does, it analyzes all the UFC stats. So for every fighter, we have a lot of data throughout his career. You can even build charts and see how the fighter developed through time. But apart from that, we also plug in different other elements into it, like sentimental analysis, so tracking, conversations on Reddit, what people are saying on YouTube, what people are saying on social media, and plugging them all into this one master data product. On top of that, there's betting markets is obviously a huge part of the UFC industry and content. So another layer of predictions is like tracking the odds across all the betting markets as well as the prediction markets that allows people to kind of figure out where are the best opportunities and see it live. The whole, build came together in about, I would say, a month to 2 months, like just the front end, but the testing, we basically custom trained our whole model, and we continuously evolve it based on the data that is available, based on the predictions that were successful and were not successful. So on average, it's 80 to 85% win rate. I can show you some of the things that I did for Fight Signal and kind of to give you an idea.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so these are just a few examples of what I did. I think for me, because UFC is not something that I keep track of. I honestly have no idea of what's happening. I know when the fights are happening and things like that, but I don't open news every day to see what's happening, and things are happening all the time. Every week there's a new fight. Within the fight there is up to 10 or more fights, and sometimes fights get cancelled. Sometimes fighters get into a fight before the fight itself. There's different things to kind of hijack the conversation. The first thing I did was set up monitoring of news digest. I track. UFC is quite popular on X as a topic of conversation. Like there is a lot of conversations happening on X and on Reddit. And what I did is very simply selected the channels on X that I find reputable or that jump on news as fast as possible, because I found that X was the first to jump on news, and then it all comes to Instagram and things like that. So I wanted to be at the root of this. When the news come out, I know about them first. So what I did is selected the channels and set up the criteria of what I consider viral or newsworthy. So every channel, for every account, I then calculated like virality score. You can see here there's a view score. So there's a certain baseline, and if a post is above a certain threshold of that baseline, it gets flagged. And every morning I get a digest of the top 5 news from the accounts that I have selected, the top 5 news that are just general on the keywords that I've selected that are also viral. And then I have the same sort of setup for Reddit, where I track subreddits that are relevant to UFC. So our UFC, our MMA betting, and a bunch of other subreddits, and also determine what is the V score, the virality score, and anything that's above that threshold, it gets sent to my team on Telegram.
And how do you determine the V score?
I basically extracted the post or content for the last month of a certain account or subreddit and calculated what is the median of, so what is like the general, and then from there the V-score was defined. So if it's above X amount of the median, that means it's an outlier, so it gets flagged. And from there, the team kind of goes through and sees, is there something that we can share? A lot of the times, and it's still a work in progress, it all depends on how people, word their sentences, right? So what we are primarily looking for is new fight announcements, new fighters signed, anything that is very controversial and things like that. But here and there, the tweet or post would be worded in a way where it sounds like it's a new fight, but essentially it's just, a made up thing, because AI doesn't really get, if people are being, if it's a joke or something like this, it doesn't yet get it, or at least I didn't configure it in a way where it would get it still. So it requires always a manual kind of approach where, okay, is this fight actually happening? And I'll always tell my team, this is there to give you a best idea of like a scan of what is happening, but you always have to double check. If if the news say that this is the upcoming fight, do a simple search. I want to see specifically is whether a certain fight is talked about, right? So I don't want to talk about any fight. There's like a million of fights that people don't care about. So this is why I use the social signals instead of our dashboard.
And to determine that, it's just engagement, retweets, comments, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the outliers. There are some controversial fights, so people are judgmental about the matchups, that they're boring and not interesting. Like, I don't want to really post about these matchups then, because they're not going to drive any conversations. So I only care about what people actually talk about. And people are very vocal on Reddit and on X in the UFC community.
You built it on Claude Code, is it? And it's a Telegram message that you receive? Or what's the process?
Yeah, so I use a Claude Code as well, but I use Factory AI droids. So I have a server at home, and Factory AI is like, I have my droids, my agents in my Slack. So treat it as like Claude Cowork that can, operate when you are not there to like ask it to do a task. It just happens on the background because it runs on the server. This is the setup. I use Factory AI.
One thing I was taken by in the last presentation you gave, the internal one, was how you set up the visuals. I don't know if you want to talk through that whenever there's a new fight, that whole process. Yeah,
so this is like the full digest, and then from this digest the agent decides what visuals need to be created. So what I set up now are some of the recurring things that I definitely want to talk about. So for example, when there's a new fight announced that is an outlier in my UFC news, it creates an image with two fighters, the event name, and it's like a template that it fills out. It uses the brand colors and the brand font and things like that. And the way that I did it, I tried to, because it's very simple, right? It's one template and that's pretty much it. I tried to create a script for it first to just, change the fighter images and without using an image generation model. But it was a very painful process of failing, basically. It didn't want to, it was just too complicated. I'm sure it's possible. It's just not something that I was willing to spend one more day tinkering. So the next best solution was fal.ai. And I use Nano Banana Pro model to generate images. So what I have is on the back end basically a template of the fight and a prompt that instructs the Nano Banana Pro through fal.ai to replace the fighter image, replace the two fighter images using the template. And with Nano Banana Pro and fal.ai, you're able to provide different reference images, the same as Higgsfield would. So the automation, when it sends a request to generate an image, it provides a template and it provides the two images of fighters. The two images of fighters, it pulls from our database, because our database, our dashboard already has all the fighter images and things like that. So that was the easiest way to get high quality images. I wanted to kind of share that this is not something that always works perfectly, because the image is generated based on my prompt, based on what the news are. Right? And a lot of the times in the news, sometimes there is an event name, sometimes there's no event name, so it can get confused or just wouldn't know what the event name is. And sometimes the output is like this. So for example, for some reason, Tricos Duplessis here is wearing a suit, which is not how it's supposed to be. So I wanted to show
this. Match.
Yeah, so it's not always perfect. It's not always perfect, and for these cases, I set up like a cron job that runs every 2 minutes for 1 hour after the images are generated. So if there is some sort of mistake, you can reply to the bot and tag it and ask it to change some things, and it will send the request to fal.ai again and send a correct image. So just to show that not everything works perfectly with these automations.
No, and I think that's so important, because so many people just pretend that everything is working smoothly, and this is a reality. You need a human in the loop.
Yeah. And there are two more image generation templates that are created. The one is for fighter signed, which is also the type of news that always resonate with the community. Again, the same type of concept. I created the template myself in Figma, sent the template to fal.ai with an image of the fighter, and then whenever it picks up the news that the fighter is signed, it sends it to me on Telegram already, ready to be uploaded to Instagram.
Yeah. And how would you pronounce his name? That's what I'm struggling with.
Muktebek Oralbay.
All right.
He's, I believe, no, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna assume.
Right.
And the last thing, in the UFC world, it's a thing where fighters get removed and added to the roster all the time, and this is sort of the way to see who is, retired, and it always generates a lot of conversation. And there are trackers, it's a public information, right? But there are accounts on Twitter, specifically two, I believe, that I'm tracking, who already have done the kind of the hard part for me of creating the scripts that would scrape to the news, and way before AI, they have it automated. So all I'm doing is running a automation that scrapes their tweets and gets me the names of who was removed and added. And in the same way, my sort of automation sees the list of fighters, figures out whether or not we have images for them already on the dashboard. If we have the images for them, it just adds those images. If it doesn't, it searches the web and picks the best image. So here, for example, this I don't really love, but it is something that I can work with. These are obviously would be my preference, and I have set up a bunch of rotating background templates, and you can see that the signs here change depending on whether the fighter was removed and added. So this is actually a script. This is not fal.ai. This is just Python. I don't know why it worked with this one and not with this one. Don't ask me. It's just something that I figured out, and if it works, don't break it. Yeah.
And did you create that script, or did?
Yeah, I did.
And how did you do that?
How did I do it? Conversation.
Just prompting.
It was just a lot of tinkering. So I created essentially, I knew that we already have a clean, shots of the fighters. And if we don't, UFC.com will have it. So essentially what I needed is a template that I would be happy with. And what I did is I went to Figma, I generated a bunch of like backgrounds and text, and I gave it to, I believe it was Opus model to kind of, because I have like a design MD skill and things like that, to figure out like how would that design be described, and to set up some sort of rules. And then it wrote a script of how I would do it, and there was a lot of, okay, you know, move it 10 pixels up, move it 10 pixels down, and once all of that was done, this is the output. There are still some rules, like for example, the contrast should be like readable, right? But for example here, for me it's not very readable. For AI, it's, I guess it is, but you know.
Okay, so you got like you imported the background image and then you asked AI to describe that exact image. So you had that template that then you ran through the script. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so there's also things like, you know, there's Figma MCP, right? Which I could have used to kind of send a link to Claude, let's say, and tell it that this is the design that I want to set up as a template. There are two rotating icons, one with you know, the fire emoji, one with no emoji, stop emoji. When the fighter is removed, it's a stop emoji. When a fighter is added, it's a fire emoji. The font that is used is this file. The font that is the fighter's name is the other file. Here's the folder with the backgrounds that need to be used randomly, so not all backgrounds are the same and are rotated. And I want the fighter image to be pulled from this database that we have. If you cannot locate an image for the fighter from the database, you check UFC.com. If UFC.com doesn't have it, you do a search and use like a playwright or something to get the image of the fighter. And it runs every Monday, and it also sends it to me on Telegram.
Fantastic. But then since you already have the templates of the background, the one where the writing doesn't appear very clearly, you can just get rid of that background in your...
Yeah, the easiest way would be just to remove the background and kind of, you know, take that learning, okay, just use the colors, where in this place it's more contrast with white. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is sort of for, you know, Instagram things. I also, we generate like, we do videos for Fight Signal for Instagram as well. And before, we used to do a lot of sort of like high production analytics videos. Now it's more like still images and other like simpler videos. But what I'm also tracking is what is going viral on TikTok and Instagram for UFC fights. This allows me to not only see the types of conversations and things like that, but also locate the creators that we could potentially work with if, you know, they're small and their outlier scores are big. And for that, I don't have a screenshot here because it's just a message in Slack for now, which I forgot to add. But I use Verlo. The tool is called Verlo, and I use their API to get what's called an orbit. An orbit is basically scanning different keywords that are relevant to me. So mine would be UFC betting, MMA betting, UFC analytics, and things like that. And it checks the top performers on Instagram, TikTok, and Meta ads, I believe, for me, that orbit, and sends me a brief as well on Slack about what went viral. And this kind of allows me to locate potential formats that we can use for ads, see which small creators are going viral, so that's a potential to do outreach, and see if there's a lot of repeating patterns of things that are going viral. How can we leverage that for Fight Signal? Yeah, so this is like when it comes to social. Another thing Yeah, another thing that I'm doing, as I mentioned, like SEO thing, SEO and IO and whatnot. There are two, I would say, standout workflows. One is blog generation. The blogs are generated based on our predictions. So I don't have a screenshot of the blog itself, but there's a certain structure to it, and the agent that generates the blog takes insights from the dashboard that we have on the site and just puts them in, the templated approach that we created, having and has like some CTAs to upgrade and see the full fight prediction. So it's pretty like simple, I would say. It's very low-hanging fruit for us, but when someone searches for a specific fight, the search volume for this type of keywords is actually very low, especially for some fights. So it would be easy for us to kind of be on top of the on top of search or on top of LLM output for this type of very
niche,
very long tail keywords. Yeah. No one talks about this except for social and things like that.
No, it's very clever. But so those blogs wouldn't really be optimized for readability. They'd be a lot more optimized for SEO, AEO, all of that.
No, they're quite. I'm a very visual person, so for me, it's very important that the information is displayed in a way that I can consume it. So it has like nice blocks. It has nice images of like screenshots from our fight analysis. So it's done in a way where if I, as a person, click into it, I can consume the information without a
Any
problem.
chance you could show us that? Okay, so what are we looking at here?
This is the blog for a fight between Alex Pereira and Cyril Gain, one of the older ones. Also here, an important thing to say is that, for example, this fight was in April, right? So there is the image pops up after a certain time that the prediction for this fight was made X amount of days ago. So don't
Keep that in
judge
mind.
because it was
Yeah.
and
Oh, wow.
these are the screenshots from the dashboards, right? They're also interactive. It's not just like screenshots, it's actually like modules from the dashboard. Nice images where we have the structure of the blog is like we do a breakdown for every fighter and then the matchup. So it would be like key information about where he's from, like what is his data, what are his recent wins and losses when they were, same for the other fighter, and then the stats. So these are the stats also from the dashboard. And then the breakdown of like why is this match interesting and like what to pay attention to, and then you can see here the CTAs to unlock like the full analysis, because the full analysis has a lot more than just technical interpretation of data. It tracks the sentiment, as I said, like from Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, and you actually see. I can show actually the dashboard after this. Like a lot of the things it tracks more than just the technical data, and you can see here there's a bunch of CTAs throughout to kind of get the full information. Wait, let me share how actually the tool looks like. So this is the dashboard. Like again. Right from the dashboard, you see what is the upcoming event. This is all like script generated. It's automatic, happens for every fight where we pull like key fighters here, and it's on the dashboard. Here you can right away see like when it starts, where it is, what are the opinions that we tracked so far, like latest news, and where did they come from, top fighters.
Those opinions, they're like experts on UFC who are commenting publicly, and you're taking their
right now you see like there's a lot of Reddit stuff, but a lot of the times there's also YouTube and other sources, just like news and things like that. We actually have like sentiment settings because for example, if I particularly don't like Lucas Tracy, I will just shut him off, you know. And we kind of add more and more people. We have a tracker on the back, because a lot of these people share who they think will win, or their opinions and things like that. And if we see that they are wrong a lot of the times, we stop listening to them as much, basically. So we don't dilute our data. And then there's like articles, so a lot of relevant news sources for this specific fight, and the Reddit threads and things like that. And then for every event, like for example, this was a big one recently, you click on every fight, and then after the fight there's analysis of what happened during the fight, like what were the strikes, and like what was the win type, and things like that. You can see at a glance what were the signals and like the predictions. Like for example, here I can see that every prediction, like technical, sentimental, community, what betting markets in terms of odds were saying, everyone was leaning towards Alex Pereira. Everyone. You see here. Yeah. But Cyril Gain won the fight, and one of our models, two of our models also thought that Alex Pereira will win, but one of our models thought Cyril Gain will win, and it was correct. So our thing is give you all the possible data to make educated predictions, and then like whether or not you use our predictions is up to you.
When you say one of our models,
yeah,
what are we dealing with here?
There are three. There's a volume, balance, and quality. The more this is sort of like each model has different weights to how it uses the data to predict certain events.
Gotcha.
A lot of the times, chat quality would not even make any predictions because it doesn't have enough data to do so. So, and you can see, like we also create and curate our own ELO score for fighters based on their performance historically, who they won against, and how and when, whether or not they were the underdog, and so on. This is not, it's just that. So, UFC has their own ranking, but it's a running kind of joke that it's not very good. Right. And so what we did is, because we had all of this data about technical capabilities of the fighters, we can benchmark them ourselves. And we can dynamically change that based on when did they win the fight and against who that fight was, and what was the rank, what was the ELO score of that fighter in our system, and then dynamically change it. So for us, it's more, viable data than just basic UFC rankings, which we don't know what goes into them. So there's a full record of like who they won against and when, and you can click into those fights. The visual representation, just to give everyone an idea, this is not something that is publicly available. Like this was built from scratch, like public visualizations and things like that.
But the data is publicly available, right?
Some of the data is, some we, like the sentiment data is.
Yeah.
And here you can see like what experts are saying versus public. So like comments versus people that are actively like sharing their predictions. You can see sources of where those came from. Like there's a lot of conversations on the betting forums about that, and it's very easy using our platform to kind of go into a specific fight and get the conversations from that. And then there's a bookmakers tab where we track odds for fights. When the fight is ongoing, you will see it on the dashboard how odds change through time, so you know right away which is the best platform to put the bet on. And here you can see a bunch of different providers. For some fights and more than for others, there's also polymarket markets, so they're included as well. Here you can see like what was it pre-fight versus what was it like during the fight, the last data that we had during the fight.
Awesome. What I love about this so much is that obviously you're using it for UFC, but you could use this template on so many different sports activities, news, predictions.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
the challenge is the more, for example, soccer is a much bigger pool
Mm.
of people, fans. But in soccer, there's way more players, so it's really hard to make accurate
Mm-hmm.
predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really really complicated. Even this already is
Mm.
like I have not trained the custom model, but I know the amount of resources and time that went into it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always an ongoing thing. Fight signal is kind of like a key visualization of what our team can do at Exolume,
Mm-hmm.
because this can be used by any like betting provider and things like that, and a lot of this casinos and sports books already purchase access to large data models for bigger sports, like
Mm-hmm.
tennis, for example, that costs a huge amount of money. So it would be possible for us to build something custom like this for them as well. For me, there's still a learning curve of how can I optimize and scale these processes, because I have a lot of things sort of going on, right? We just covered the fight signal part of the small workflows that I
Mm-hmm.
built, like that helped me output more. But there's a lot of also processes like on the side for me, like as a content person, but also for the clients of mine, like things that are like competitor reports or like just performance reports every month. Before, it used to be such a drag to collect all this data. And I know it doesn't take so much time, but for me, it felt like a big drag, and I would dread like the first of every month. Right now, I have a workflow that collects the performance across all the different channels that we have, gives me the data, helps me visualize the data, does the same for competitors as well, which I would like. It would be huge kind of thing for me. Before, I wouldn't know how to get the amount of impressions that my competitors get without using some external tools and paying
Mm-hmm.
for them extra. Right now, I can use API scrapers or the custom X scraper that we have at Fight Signal to just get what I need for free, basically. I mean, for dollars at like cents at a time, and get it all in a way that I like. I don't have to use any third-party platform. It all populates in Notion the way that I like and the way that I set it up, the way that makes sense to me, and it's the best. And then it just sends me a message, I'm done. These are the takeaways from the report, and this is what you have to do next month because your competitors succeeded in doing this last month. I'm like, okay.
Fantastic. Do you feel you managed to free up time or not at all? Because I feel one of the
Not at all.
ironies here is that I'm working harder than ever, but of course I'm learning way more than I did
Yeah.
before now.
I think this is the biggest scam of like, oh, we have so much more free time. Maybe if you, I think for me, it's just a matter of unlocking the amount of things that I can do on top of what I already did and the possibilities that are endless. Like, I am, on Twitter or on LinkedIn every day, and I see what people are doing and what people are building, and this inspires me to build more things for myself that would at some point free up my time. But for now,
Mm-hmm.
I would say right now I have the workflows for posting these carousels, or the workflows for like tracking Reddit and things like that. Would I do it at this scale if I didn't have AI? Probably not. It would be way less of an output. But does it
Mm-hmm.
make more sense for my product and what I've built? It
Mm-hmm.
makes absolute and total sense. I'm just glad that I can do more with the tools that I have at hand.
Yeah.
And my team, because the people are still very important. Like, even though we track Reddit and like pre-draft replies, there's always a person that goes through and edits them and things like that, because Reddit especially is very, very sensitive. So you have to have a human in the loop always. I could
Wait,
not do
what do
it
you mean
without my team.
sensitive? On content, like that's where I personally see the biggest kind of limitation with AI. I still think there's a long way to go before content,
Yeah,
like written content, isn't easy to spot as AI. What do
yeah.
you think about that, and how much do you use AI for writing versus your own?
I use AI for writing all day, every day. I always edit. whatever it produces. Always, always, always. It's never a finished product. It helps me to get from idea to finished product. Like if you follow me on Instagram or if you follow me on LinkedIn or X, you will see that I share this weekly kind of marketing inspiration in fintech and crypto. And most of this workflow is AI supplemented. So I find something, I find something that I like because I haven't been able to figure out how to teach AI to see the marketing things that I like, because these are not the stuff that people talk about in the news. It's something that if you're in the trenches and you just saw it by scrolling the feed. I dedicate like one morning on Friday to like scrolling through and seeing what happened through the week. It just kind of comes naturally to me. And then I use AI to kind of get me more context on what is the campaign about and what is noteworthy about it, sort of. And then I built out, my sort of tone of voice guide, which is the closest that it can get to how I would talk about it. A lot of the times I get very mad at it because it says absolute crap. But it helps me to get from, just the idea to 90% finished product, which I get, when it comes to writing, I like to work in chat. I know it's maybe controversial, but because I work content piece by content piece and it's always like a feedback loop, I'm never happy. From the first go, it always is important for me to work in the chat, especially on things like my marketing roundups, and only then it get posted. But like all this like formatting and making the visuals, I always try to make the visuals not templated and aligned with what I would share, what I find funny or something creative or things like that. And it's not something that I can outsource to AI.
Nice. Polina, thank you so much. It's been a riveting discussion. If people want to find you, where can they go?
They can find me on Twitter. I'm at my surname, PV, name and surname on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.